Hey, so big news yesterday. I'm sure you guys were watching the Casey Anthony trial. We were watching. Actually, we were doing our meeting at Studio 6, and we stopped it to watch the verdict come in. She was found, as I'm sure most of our viewers know, not guilty of first-degree murder in the death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. The jury reached that decision after less than 11 hours of deliberation, and a lot of people were very upset about that verdict. The case was very much circumstantial, but a lot of people out there on Facebook, Twitter, I mean, the internet was just blowing up with people saying that justice was not served. Well, we have a guest with us today who actually worked with the Anthony family, and she says justice was in fact served. Michelle Bart from Helping Heroes, a local organization that helps families of missing children, and you worked with the Anthony family when Kaylee was still missing. That's correct. I was their media consultant and spokesperson from July, doing a lot of the internet. We did the website for them, and then throughout November and December, we did a big media blitz because we believed Kaylee was alive because of witness sightings. That was back in 2008? Yes. Yep. And so you followed this trial very closely. You were actually in Orlando for some of it. Why is it that you think that justice was served and that Casey was not guilty? I think if you look at the file and you look at the evidence, there was none. I think if the prosecution had come into this and the state maybe entered into a different argument, they may have won some kind of a guilty verdict that would have been fine with the audience, if you will. But in this particular case, there was no evidence. There's no DNA to put this woman at the crime scene. There's no cause. Why would she do it? There's not one prosecution witness that indicated that she ever harmed her daughter. Her daughter was well taken care of, and all the witnesses, all 90 of them, admitted that. So it's kind of difficult to pass judgment on somebody because of a character assassination that occurred from day one because of what was being given to the media from law enforcement. And you can't prosecute somebody on that. You have to prosecute them on hardcore evidence, and there was none. And I think the jury found that out.
Well, then this is, I mean, it's kind of a tribute to the justice system, and that the system worked, if that's the case, because clearly that's what the jurors, I mean, they did what they were told in this case.
They did what they were told, and if they believe somebody else did it, those people are not on trial. And we've heard from a juror, or an alternate juror, that indicated that they believed it may have been somebody else in the family covering up. He wasn't there for 11 hours. If that's what they all had decided, it would have been a verdict within an hour. And for 11 hours, they looked at evidence. And you can't look at stuff that don't exist.
I am so torn, excuse me, because, I mean, I have been on a jury, so I have had the honor of serving justice. Hopefully it was served. So I understand the piece where, you really have to only take into account the evidence, and they were sequestered from my understanding.
They were.
And so they didn't get all this other information that we, the public, have been getting all along in that little, in that time frame. So I get it, but my heart just feels like something, where is the justice for this baby? Because something happened. And I know that I don't want anybody looking in my house. I mean, God forbid if my family were on trial and we're not killing anybody, we're not doing anything but I mean, there's things that probably would pop up that I might not be so proud of. So I don't want my life paraded in front of millions of people and, judging me. But at the same time, from what we were able to see, it just feels like something is not right. Something is missing. There's lies and deception all around this family, and not to say that that's unique to just the Anthony family, but my heart is torn because I just feel like this little baby, what happens now?
I don't know what happens now. I know that I am afraid for both George and Cindy and Casey's life. You talk about social media. If the jury had heard all of the speculations and fabrications being given off of social networks and things of that nature, they probably would have passed judgment and convicted her. So they looked at the evidence, and unfortunately the audience, the public, is not looking at the evidence. And so what happens now?
passing hate out there, or media or other attorneys indicating the jury made a mistake and then crucifying the jury, nobody's ever going to want to serve on a jury again.
Right.
So you can't do that. They did their job. They came, they were there 41 days. They chose not to speak to media afterwards, and they looked at the evidence. Where is the justice if you prosecute or send somebody to death row for a crime they didn't commit? That's an injustice to our system and an injustice to Kaylee. So right now I believe that they need to find out the truth, no matter where it may take them, and find out who harmed this child and who killed her. And then I think justice will be had.
Well, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you were telling me before the show that you actually spent time in their home. You did your laundry at the Anthony's house. What did you think of the accusations that were made about George Anthony, the dad?
I don't believe him.
You don't believe him?
I believe the defense took a road that surprised everybody, prosecution, to the family's attorney, maybe even to Casey herself. I don't know. The defense had a job to do, and that was to make sure that their client did not go to death row in Florida, and they succeeded in that. If they had failed, what would we be talking about? You know, so he did his job. Do I agree with what he did? No. And I think that was indicated in the press release made by the George and Cindy's attorney, Mark Lipton. You know, they understand, they respect the system, they think the jury made a good decision, and despite the fact that the defense took the approach that they did. Do I believe it? Show me the evidence. Right. Where is the evidence? Where is the proof that either Lee or Casey had ever been molested by their parents? Where is the proof that George ever covered something up? I worked with that family from, like I said, from July through December 11th. You know, we flew out from the West Coast. We were doing Larry King back to Orlando the day the remains were found. I can tell you, those parents, if they knew anything, they wouldn't have hidden it. They wouldn't have. And I think that we tend to listen to the speculation, the bloggers, and things of that nature, and we believe what we hear, but yet what we're hearing is only based on evidence that was provided to us from the state, and not so much from the evidence. And we need to keep that in mind when we're trying to seek justice.
Well, Michelle Bart from Helping Heroes, thanks so much for coming on. We're
Thank you.
putting your website address there on our screen, helpingheroes.com.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for your insight. And again, the sentencing for Casey Anthony is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, so 6 a.m. our time, found guilty of only misdemeanors. So it should be interesting to see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Still to come.